everybody. Welcome to PR20 Chat TV. Here we are this week with our first special guest. We have Chuck Hemann, who is at Chuck Hemann on Twitter. Chuck, what is your new title now with Ogilvy?
VP of Digital Strategy and Analytics.
Excellent. So he's just starting with them, so congrats on the new gig.
Thank you.
We are going to talk with Chuck about influencer outreach, influencer relations, and what that all means for PR and how it's sort of changing with technology. So, Chuck, why don't you give us just a quick broad stroke overview of influencers and how you are using the concept of influencer relations in your day-to-day work?
Sure. So, I think influencer relations and influencer identification is really one of those super gold rush topics of 2011. I think Jay Baer actually dropped that line originally as the gold rush topic, and it really is, mostly because companies getting started in social media face the super daunting task of trying to figure out what they're going to say, but then who they're going to talk to, because the reality is the Facebook universe is 500, 600 million users. The Twitter universe is tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions at this point. And influencer identification helps them sort of eliminate the boil the ocean problem. I think people want to get started in social, but they're realizing, gosh, there's so many things, so many people to talk to. Where do I even get started? So if we can give them a list of 50 or 100 or 500 if the brand is large enough. If we can give them a list of that many people to focus on, I think it makes it easier for them to dip their toe in the water.
How do you put those lists together? How do you go about finding the right influencers?
That's a really good question, and I think this is one of those areas where the space is growing. But not quite there yet. So most of the trouble lies in developing an influencer list that is so overly focused on reach. And by reach, I mean impressions, total monthly visits, unique visits. I'm not saying those aren't important, but what's really important is how often that potential influencer's content is syndicated. So when they put out a piece of content, how often is it retweeted? How many comments do they get on the post? We're also really concerned with relevancy. So, the example I usually give to clients is, it'd be great to appear in GigaOM, but how many times does GigaOM write about a B2B manufacturing company? Not often. Could they be an influencer? Sure. Are they now? Probably not.
Right. Okay. So once you put together the list that, like what you were talking about, that has the reach and the relevancy, what do you do with that list? How do you recommend your clients? Because, people, their instinct then is all of a sudden, I want to start communicating with all these people. I'm going to start emailing them my pitch, and hopefully they'll write about me. So how do you go about using your influencer list the right way?
I think this is the other really fundamental problem. I think we're far too ready to create a list of 100 people or 200 people and then immediately want to talk to them, when in reality, there could be 50 people in that list that we would never be able to reach, whether they are in a forum or they just don't accept pitches, or they don't work with PR people. I mean, whatever the case may be. But that doesn't mean we don't care about what they have to say, and that doesn't mean they don't influence, quote unquote, the online conversation. So the way we typically approach influencer lists is we're going to develop a broad list and then break it up into whether or not this person would be a quote unquote VIP, whether they would get a sort of standard PR pitch. And I know it's kind of taboo in social media, but it still happens and it's totally fine.
Every day.
Or they may be listening only. So we want to be mindful of what they're saying, and then track their movements, but we may not necessarily be able to reach out and touch them right away.
Okay. That's great. And surprisingly, that already takes us to the end of our 5 minutes. So, the fast 5 minutes with Chuck. Maybe we'll have to have you back someday to talk more about listening and measuring and all that good stuff. So, thank you so much for joining us
Sounds
on this
good.
week's episode of PR20 Chat TV. We'll be back next week with another great topic. Thanks.
Thanks.